You usually know what a tantrum is. It's kind of their eyeballs are spinning and their heads are spinning. You can see they're out of control. They can't control themselves even.
How do you frame it with parents so that they don't start talking negatively about that one kid who has tantrums?
Oftentimes, the most combative, disobedient child often turns out to be really successful later on in life.
I don't want her to feel like if she makes a mistake or behaves inappropriately, I will abandon her, but also don't know if picking her up is sending the wrong message.
Yeah, you're just giving into it. So what's going on there? Welcome to the Bratbusters Parenting Podcast. My name's Lisa Bunnage. I'm a parenting coach. I'm a mom. I'm also a grandmother.
And I'm Amy Bunnage, Lisa's daughter, and I handle the marketing and planning here at Bratbusters. While I don't have kids, each episode will dive into parenting topics and Lisa will answer your questions. Let's get started.
Okay, Sugar Lump, what is today's topic?
Today's topic, Sugar Lump. That is a newer one for the podcast.
Well, only for the podcast. I've always called you. I won't say what I do have a nickname for her, but it's too long and too embarrassing.
Okay, today's topic is handling the chaos. So it's all about tantrums and more.
Handling the chaos. Okay. Good. Okay. So this is the storms is what I call it. It's when things are negative and they're not going very well. That's when you want to stay as calm as possible. Now, I know it's hard to do. You can be as riled up and as angry as you want inside, but try not to show it because they're going to feed off your energy. If you get angry, they're going to get worse. Okay. So yeah, don't let them feed off that energy. Just keep it all light and airy and say, okay, so it's a little bit crazy right now. So and then follow through with some consistent corrective actions or some consequences, whatever you have to do. You handle bad behavior, you deal with it, but you do not focus on it. Everyone wants to discuss the bad behavior. Huge mistake. Where you put your energy, where you put your focus is what grows. Kids do not act out because they don't understand. They act out. It's a lack of impulse and a lack of consequences.
And we have this. So this is the fourth part of the Calm Leadership series. So the first ones, we had the core foundations. We had about the connection, discipline. And I have this one because I think this is one of the most asked questions because I can imagine these scenarios are incredibly overwhelming for parents.
And the thing is, it's probably my least effective area as a parenting coach because there's really not much I can say to you other than try not to show that you get upset because that's your battle. I can tell you what to do, but I can't tell you how to feel and how not to show how you're feeling. So that's your battle. You have to learn not to show anger, frustration, or disappointment because those things will bring out the worst in children. Okay? They bring out the worst in anybody, but especially kids.
And you talk about this, and I think this is a good way for parents to maybe view this episode is you talk about how this is relatively simple in theory, how you approach this, but it's in practice, if you're starting out, this is hard.
It's like anything, oftentimes the most productive you can be is often the easiest thing to do, but the hardest to start because basically, we're dealing with emotions here, basically. And that's what's so difficult. Same with procrastination. If I've got a big project ahead of me, you're very good at this, sweetie. You dive right in. I'm lousy at it. I build it up to be something horrific. So I'm terrified to start. I sweat. I get all worked up because I get that paralysis by analysis. I overthink it, whereas it's better just to start. And it's like that with parenting. It's better just to start and fail and then try again tomorrow. So rather than try and worry about getting this all perfect on day one, you just give it a go every single day. Give it a go. You're going to mess up. Okay, everybody does because you're changing your basic personality. You're trying to reel in your emotions. Good luck with that. It is hard to do. I'm not saying don't get upset. I'm saying try not to show it because remember, they're going to feed off your energy. Like, let's say I was getting all upset. My dad was a pleaser. My mom was the leader. Okay, so my dad, if I was getting upset over something and mad about something, he would have said, well, come on, sweetie pie. What do you want? I would have got worse. I want that. Okay. Whereas my mom would have said, you'll be all right. And I would have shut right up because her energy was like, yeah, that's enough. Like I couldn't feed off her because she gave me nothing to feed off of. Whereas my dad did, he fed it. He would say, well, what can I do? What do you want? If I give you this, will that be okay? And I just got where it's almost scared me. I liked it when mom came in and said, yeah, you're all right. And that was it. I would just stop fussing right away because mom was a leader. She was calm as anything.
Is it the idea where if you're a little kid, you're like, well, you're meant to know?
Yeah, it's like you want to look like you don't want to look like you know everything, but you want to look like none of this is flustering you. Yeah, I'm in control. If you look like you're out of control, how's it going to make them feel? It scares them. I got a story. I don't know if I told this already in one of these podcasts. I can't remember the story of that grade 2 class that there was a bunch of us moms in there helping with an activity day, and the fire alarm was pulled by accident, or not by accident, but some kid pulled it. Right? It wasn't planned, and these were grade 2 kids. It scared the bejeebies out of them. They all ran to me, not their mums, not the teacher. They ran to me. I was the calmest leader in the room. They already knew Lisa's a calm leader because they were used to me working with them. So they're drawn to a leader. It doesn't mean that they like me more than their parents, obviously, probably not even the teacher, but they're very drawn. They feel safe with a leader. And they were very calm. They were ready to listen and do what I said, right? Because they knew Lisa knows how to take care of business. By the way, that teacher, I think, was a substitute or brand new. She wasn't an experienced teacher, or else they would have run to her or him.
Okay. So I think this is all about the tantrums, the chaos, the intensity. How do you specifically approach tantrums?
Okay, tantrums are not big on emotions and feelings. They are based on anger at not getting their own way. They're a loss of emotional control because they didn't get what they wanted, when they wanted, and how they wanted it. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's not big feelings and big emotions, but it looks that way because remember, they're usually young when they're still having tantrums. So they're kind of coming out of their main way of communicating is actions. It's not words yet. So, and just think about it. When they're babies, they scream like it's the end of the world just to get fed. So their language is still emotions and theater. It's drama. So it's not like we were acting like that. If we acted like they act during a tantrum, it would be the end of the world. For them, it's just, yeah, I didn't get my own way and I'm mad about it. That's it. So don't put too much weight onto it. That's number one, is that just understand that it's not a big emotional turmoil that you think it is. It's very theatrical and it's very dramatic, but it's not based on big feelings and big emotions like you think it is. That's why we don't discuss it before, during, or after, okay? And a tantrum is not bad behavior. It's a loss of emotional control. So what you do is you want to be nearby when they're having a tantrum, and you want to look like they're having the tantrum, but you look like you're just waiting for it to finish, like you're waiting for a bus. You can be filing your nails, whatever, just do the dishes, whatever, and you don't look at them or talk to them. But it's important, and you don't get into a conversation with someone or look at your phone. That's kind of rude. They're still going through something. You want to look like you're waiting for that tantrum to finish, because when it does, you're going to say, oh, you all done? Do you want to go read a book? And that's it. Do not discuss the tantrum. There's no point. None. Okay. Now they might start up again because all of a sudden you've given them the attention that they've been after the whole time. They might start up again, say, oops, okay, never mind, and then ignore them again. Okay. So it's the connection after the tantrum that's super important. If you don't do that, I would rather you give them attention and give them whatever they want during a tantrum, because the connection afterwards is the reward for calming down. So you're teaching them how to self-regulate. By doing that, your body language, your actions are what's teaching them, not your words, not your consoling them through a tantrum, not your trying to reason. That's reasoning through, that is garbage, okay? Your actions are what is training them how to handle their own feelings, their own emotions. That is the most important thing, is them learning how to get themselves out of it, because they realize when I'm kicking and screaming and having a tantrum, I get no attention whatsoever. Soon as I stop, I will get attention. Doesn't mean they're going to get what they wanted. Okay, they're not going to get the ice cream they were screaming over, or whatever, but they're going to get attention. Okay, so, and you don't console them, don't hug them after a tantrum. It makes you look like you're consoling the tantrum. Don't do that. They might even say during a tantrum, I need a hug. And that's not a love hug. That's a validate my tantrum hug. You still ignore them. After a tantrum, I need a hug. You say, you're all right. Pat them on the back. And then you say, do you want to go read a book? You don't console them. You don't hug them and look like you felt sorry for them, because you didn't. You just let them figure it out all by themselves. The better you get at this, the sooner the tantrums are going to diminish in intensity, frequency, and duration over a period of time. They're not going to end overnight. They usually should end by about 3 to 3.5. And past the age of 4, they only do what works. If they're still having tantrums after, actually it's 3 years and 9 months. If they're still having tantrums after that, it means that they must work. You must be feeding it somehow.
Oh, sorry, I took a sip of water there.
Yeah, I was finished, and then I looked over and you were drinking some water. You weren't paying attention. I was
I
winding
was.
down.
I was listening. So I think that's something that you mentioned there, and I really want to just go back to it, is the importance of that connection. Now, your approach is with the understanding that these parents are connected to these kids.
I'm making the assumption that they know you're crazy about them. You play with them a lot because their love language is play and fun, right? And that you already have that connection. If you don't, this is still a good way to get it. is to ignore the tantrum because you don't want to connect during a tantrum. That is not the time to connect. You do not want to connect with that negative energy. Okay, let it go. But then afterwards, you got to connect. If you don't connect after the tantrum, they learn nothing. They learn that I get no attention during a tantrum or after, so I may as well keep having it because now they're just upset. Okay. Now, a tantrum is based on anger. It's not based on big sadness. There's some of that in there because they didn't get what they wanted, but it's mostly based on anger.
And also go into the idea of the tantrums about the needs versus the wants.
Well, you're meeting their needs and managing their wants. These are the tantrums over the wants, like they want ice cream when you don't want them to have it. That's the want. The needs are if they're tired, hungry, sick, cold, you meet their needs. Even if they're having a tantrum and they're starving, of course you're going to feed them during a tantrum, okay? You always meet their needs. Even if they're having a tantrum, you meet their needs. If they're cold, you wrap them up. If they need to get some sleep, you care for them, put them to bed, right? It's the wants that we're talking about, those tantrums.
Okay.
Very good point. Thank you for that.
And then do all kids have tantrums from your perspective?
No, there's 4 things that they're born that common things that they're born to do or they're never gonna do. It's in their DNA. One of them is tantrums, one of them is running, like running away from you. Another one is climbing. They often go together because they don't have any fear. They don't always go together though. And the last one is physical violence. They hit, they bite, they kick. They're either gonna do that or they're never gonna do it. Oh, but it's not your fault that they start doing it. It's in their DNA. They're gonna give it a go, but it is your responsibility to train them out of those bad habits.
So I can envision parents hearing your perspective on how you approach tantrums and they go, okay, maybe at home, but what if I'm at a busy shopping mall?
Well, I still do the exact same way. If it's a really loud, crowded mall, I would just let them kick and scream, and I'm standing right there filing my nails. If it's a quieter place where you're disturbing people, I would take them out, pick them up, and face them away from you, not so that they can't bite you or hit you. Face them away from you and cart them out of there and let them have the tantrum in the car or in the parking lot, so they're not disturbing other people.
I think let's move away from tantrums for a little bit and talk about whining. How do you approach whining?
By the way, that is my Achilles heel. I can't stand whining, drives me insane. But anyway, it's not bad behavior. It's an affectation. Means it's a habit. And you've trained them to do it. It means that you would have fed it. You would have given them attention for whining, okay? So here's how I deal with whining. If it's just a little one, like a toddler, 16 to 35 months, I would just say, ooh, no, I don't know. You say, and then you repeat how you want them to say it and then snub them a little bit. So just kind of ignore them. And then you might repeat it again. Say, please. And then if they say it nicely, then your answer may still be no, but at least you're going to address it, okay? Now, if they're 3 and above and you don't put whining on the behavior board because it's not bad behavior, it is an affectation, okay? So it's just a habit. They don't even know they're doing it half the time. So if you say to your 3-year-old and above, you say, I'll tell you what, whining is pretty annoying, and it's okay to say that, pretty annoying. You tend to do it a lot. Here's how it sounds. I want, God, even saying that myself, I hate it. Anyway, I want that. That's whining. So you may not even be aware you're doing it. Every time you whine, I'm going to touch my nose or tug my ear to let you know you're whining, and then I will ignore you until you talk nicely. And when I do answer you, the answer may still be no, but I will talk to you. And that is really effective with a lot of clients have told me it works really, really well because they're not even aware they're doing it. It's like an affectation, like the vocal fry is another affectation. Like, oh, I don't know. That's called a vocal fry. It's to show that you're really cool and you don't care about anything. It's usually young people that do it, but it's like that. It's an affectation. Not bad behavior though.
Okay, should we get into the parenting questions?
Sure.
So the first one is Marta from Croatia. My son's 2.5 years old. I have a question about the term tantrum. I feel like people use that word all the time and often not quite correctly. I see so many different pieces of advice on how to handle tantrums in kids, and it got me thinking. What's actually the difference between a tantrum and other emotions, like frustration or anger, when a child doesn't get what they want?
Well, you usually know what a tantrum is. It's kind of their eyeballs are spinning and their heads are spinning. You can see they're out of control. They can't control themselves even. Okay, a tantrum, fit, meltdown, and scene, I sort of put in all that same category. You can usually tell when they've lost it. And it's what they get so bad that even if they did get what they wanted, they'll probably still keep tantruming. They've just lost it. So you can usually tell, and usually parents can tell, okay? And it's different with a lot of kids. Some of them have way worse tantrums than others. Some of the kids just they scream and then they get violent. That's not necessarily a tantrum. Okay, that could just be bad behavior. A tantrum, you usually know it's usually a loss of, they can't even control their own bodies. They're throwing themselves on the ground. They are gone.
And I think that this might be a good time to mention, just because it wasn't earlier, is that This is your approach for tantrums generally, but there are some unique situations where this would not be your approach.
Really? I think that was the needs, or was there something else?
If there's special needs involved
Oh,
or
well,
trauma,
obviously. We're talking about kids basically here who may have ADHD, which I don't consider a special need. It just takes a little bit more patience, usually a little bit more time, because they often struggle with impulse control a little bit more than kids who don't, or also focus. They have issues with focus sometimes, but it's all the same method. And all this stuff does not necessarily apply to kids who are on the autism spectrum or have some other challenges, okay, medical challenges, either cognitive or physical. Those are exceptions, but we're just talking about the non-exceptions here.
yeah, I just wanted to say that because some parents might be asking that question because you do get asked in your DMs.
Well, I do, but that would be personal coaching with me because I have to assess the situation. What kind of support do you have? What kind of training do you have? What's going on? So yeah, that would be private coaching. I can't generalize with kids with challenges
Not
because
a
they,
medical professional, not
oh gosh, no. I'm just an experienced old lady.
okay. The next one is Dejana from Germany. I started implementing your methods for about 5 weeks now. I'm definitely the pleaser parent, and I can see how I've encouraged some really annoying things. My husband's a bit more of an authority, but still gives me very much the lead. He is also not completely in with this approach now and is not following the strategies, but he won't intervene if I let him know. I just wanted to know if it destroys everything if he parents occasionally his way when I'm occupied or so. He reacts a bit more angry way and gives a consequence most of the time, like ending the current play or taking away something if my 3-year-old throws, or like staying in his room. But as soon as it's done, so 1 to 3 minutes after the tantrum, he's very connecting. He has always been that way, and back then I had always wished that I could go back to the calm so quick. But for example, he does not ignore the tantrums.
Yeah, the problem is it can undermine you. If you're a really strong leader, he can't. But if you're learning how to lead, yeah, you can be undermined. Okay. Like if someone tried to undermine me, it wouldn't work because I'm already such a strong leader. But when you're learning how to do this, you want to be on the same page. He doesn't have to do what you're doing, but he has to default to you. He has to say, well, I'll discuss it with your mom. And there's no weakness in that. That's actually strength. That's saying we're on the same page. We're on a team here, us parents. So yeah, you just tell him, give me 3 weeks, or you've already been doing it for 5 weeks, but say, you can't undermine me for 3 weeks. Get your own behavior board going in your master bathroom just between the two of you and say no undermining each other. Or you could say that his rule can be no undermining you, and then your rule, he can say something else like you can't be late, or something, I don't know, whatever. And then you just the consequences, a foot massage or something. So make it fun, but you're just kind of trying to get on the same page and just put a time limit on it. Say, give me like 6 weeks or 3 weeks of not being undermined, and let's see how it goes.
Okay, the next one is Katie from England. My son just turned 3 in October. He's a very good boy, but has recently stopped his nap and has been a lot more difficult at bath time. He's having tantrums around getting undressed, getting in the bath, and especially brushing his teeth. He's always been so good at it. I give him options so he feels like he's making the decision and waiting for the bus during the tantrums, but I can't wait for long because he's getting more tired and I can't have him up too late. I've also tried to make it a game and make it fun like we used to, but it doesn't work. What do I do?
Well, it doesn't work because he's overtired. This is the transition time. He's obviously more tired. I would do bedtime routine before bedtime. So I might say, right after dinner, we're going to have your bath and get you all ready, get you in your jammies, and then you can play for a while. Then we'll read to you, and then you go to bed. So yeah, it's just a transition time right now. And then you said you try and give them more choice. If they're overtired, having a choice does not make any difference. Okay. So you already know that because it's not working. Yeah. They're just upset because he's tired. He's overtired. So remember, you meet their needs and manage their wants. If he's overtired, you get him ready sooner, and then you just sort of read to him right before bed.
The good old afternoon bath time or shower. It just feels like such a luxury when I get an afternoon shower.
I don't usually do that because I'm so active during the day. I usually shower right before bed. The odd time I'll have a shower during the day, I'm always worried someone's going to knock on my door. A delivery man's going to come up. I don't know why, but I tend to have a fear of during the day showers.
Nothing quite like a 12 p.m. shower.
Okay.
I'm sure there's people listening who are like, totally, yeah.
Or there's others who are going, get on with it. Come on.
Okay. Okay. I can tell where your thoughts are. We'll go into the next question. So, Karen from Australia. My toddler's 2. After I give her consequence or take corrective action, she starts a tantrum. I ignore her and just do things around her nearby. She usually runs to me and follows me around crying and eventually stops asking for what she wants originally, wanted but didn't get it, or what was taken away but ends up wanting to come up or wants me to pick her up. She hasn't fully calmed down and is still crying and soon starts crying if I don't pick her up. I'm just confused what to do. I don't want her to feel like if she makes a mistake or behaves inappropriately, I will abandon her, but also don't know if picking her up is sending the wrong message. I never get into what she originally wanted, but I feel torn about not giving her emotional support. She does tend to calm down and move on a lot quicker if I do pick her up.
Yeah, you're just giving into it. So what's going on there is she thinks, "Well, I'm gonna stop asking for what I wanted and you said no to because that wasn't working. So I'm gonna try and control you another way. I'm gonna ask for a hug." Okay? Because then I'll stop because then I'm getting something that I want. You're actually giving into the tantrum. And so what you do is you as soon as you see that she's kind of coming out of the tantrum, and then she might even start crying, but the tantrum's over, that real angry outburst is over, you might say, and then I need a hug. And then you say, pat her on the back and you say, "You're okay. Let's go read a book." See how I'm all cheery? I'm controlling the narrative here. I'm controlling the energy. Don't get into the soothing zone because then she'll think tantrums are good because I get soothed, right? You don't want to do that. You want her to learn how to soothe herself. That's self-regulation. You're trying to regulate her. We don't do that because then they never learn how to self-regulate.
I think this might be one of the most asked questions online around tantrums for you is about this because I can totally understand from this parent's perspective is you don't want your kid to feel like you're going to abandon them or you don't want them to feel bad about the fact that they're not getting a hug. So, do you want to go into this a little bit more just to make it more clear on your perspective?
Wouldn't dawn on me to feel bad about that. Wouldn't even cross my mind because I know it's bad. Okay. It's bad to feed the tantrum, which is what you're doing when you give them love during a tantrum, and it's not love that they're after. It's attention, it's control is what they're after. You know, let's say they weren't having a tantrum in that moment. Would they be wanting to be picked up in a hug? Probably not. They want it because they're trying to pull you into that angry zone with them. They want to be consoled. They want you to feel bad about it. Whereas I don't feel bad about it. Like I just like, yeah, it's annoying, but I'm just waiting for you to get over it. That's all I'm doing. And then I reward them at the end with attention. As soon as they stop and they come out of it, I say, "Oh, you all done? You want to go to the park? You want to help me do the dishes? Do you want to do some baking?" I connect right afterwards. Okay. So then it just, and then the tantrums lessen. So a lot of parents, they think that, well, I feel so bad because they're crying. They look so upset. Yeah, but you're prolonging the tantrums. They're going to have them more often. They're going to be longer in duration. They're going to have them more frequently. They're going to have them for a longer period of time, over the years. So yeah, you're actually prolonging the tantrum. So isn't it kinder to end the tantrums quicker?
So, I'll keep harping on this just because I do think this could be an important thing to talk about. The rebuttal I hear a lot is during our hardest moments as adults, like that would be very intense if someone just cut us off like that and was like, "Nope, you're not getting a hug." I hear as well the idea of parents wanting to co-regulate with their kids because their kids are confused and there's a lot of emotions going on. It's very intense and overwhelming for these kids.
Well, you said that during their hardest moments. That is not their hardest moments. It's not. It looks like it is to you because if you acted like that, it would be your hardest moment. Remember, they're coming out of babyhood. All they had was crying. That's how they communicated. So when they're having an absolute fit, remember, they're coming out of babyhood. Their form of communication was nothing but crying. So their crying outburst is not like it would be if we acted like that. Okay. It's not their hardest moment at all. Actually, I would be sadder if you didn't connect with them after the tantrum because that is when you want to connect. You want to reward that calm. And the crazy is based on anger. It's not based on feeling bad or sad. It's based on anger. It's not their self-esteem that's on the line here. It's them learning that I can't get what I want, when I want, and how I want it. That's all it is. And it's kindness to teach them that that's the case. They cannot always have what they want. It's kinder to ignore that stuff. Let them process, wait a minute, I'm not in charge here. I can't always get ice cream whenever I want it. I can't not go in the car seat when I don't want to. They've got to learn this stuff.
And one last thing, I just do marketing here. I'm not a mom. I don't know much about parenting, but I've also heard some people talk about the idea. For example, I've heard that if a baby is neglected and they cry a lot and they never get picked up or whatever, they end up stop crying because they realize that it's never going to get them what they want. But that's not exactly a positive because it's because they're getting neglected. I've heard that some parents say if they stop the tantrums because of this method, it's very similar to that situation.
Yeah. Babies are 0 to 16 months or 15 months. If they cry, pick them up. Okay. And this is not sad crying. This is anger. It's a loss of emotional control, not getting their own way. It's not sadness that they're going through. It's madness, okay? And that's okay that you ignore that. Also, you're giving them a lot of attention every other time. You should be very affectionate with your toddlers. Their love language is fun and affection. So I'm assuming that you give them a lot of affection. That they can survive without a hug while they're having a tantrum. They will be just fine. They don't feel abandoned. They're just mad that they're not getting what they wanted. Think about it. And plus, you're right there. You're right there. I'm not leaving them. I'm standing right there, but they need to see me look like I'm just waiting for that tantrum to end. I am literally there for them. I'm just not giving them what they want because they're in the madness zone, right? I'm not feeding the tantrum. You know why? They're not happy when they're having a tantrum. I want those tantrums to end as soon as possible because they're not happy. No one's happy while they're having a tantrum. I'm not. They're not. So this method stops the tantrums. They don't need to have tantrums, okay? They can learn to get out of those. And that's what this does. It teaches them, wait a minute, I get nothing I want when I act like that. So I'm just going to stop doing it. Kids lean into what works and they lean away from what doesn't. If you're going to console them or give them any attention during a tantrum, they're going to keep leaning into it and be more miserable because of it.
Okay, we'll get into the next question. So we have Lacey from the United States. My son is 32 months old. Also in the home with us are my husband, my dad, and my brother. My husband and brother work swing shift, which means that they're up late and sleep in. My dad's getting older and needs frequent naps. I find myself caving into tantrums just to keep my son from waking up other people, and I'm afraid he is picking up on this. How do I work on my leadership skills while also being respectful of the rest of the family?
Yeah, that my hands are kind of tied here because you can't use what I recommend. But I do have clients who are like this. Let's say they have a brand new baby in the house. If you can, I would literally take the toddler out and in a hallway or in a stairwell, or if you have someone else home with the baby, I would just take them outside or in the car if it's cold out or whatever and let them tantrum outside. I would still follow through with the method, but I would move them so that it wouldn't be disturbing other people if possible.
Okay, the next one is Brisa from the United States. I'm a mother of a 13-month-old that has very frequent tantrums. That happen mostly around me to the point of where I avoid being in the same room with her because she'll immediately start crying, but be fine otherwise when with other caretakers. Developmentally, what's the best approach for her age to stop these tantrums?
It's redirection or diversion. So if she's having a tantrum, say, "Ooh, what's this?" And it's indirect redirection. So you're not talking to her necessarily. You just go off somewhere and look at something that one of her toys, and start playing with it. "Oh, this is good. Woo, look at that." So it's indirect redirection. If you look right at her, it usually makes it worse. So yeah, I just look like I'm doing something really fascinating, and I let her come over and play with me, right? Redirection or diversion, and she's just a baby still. They're babies till they're 15, 16 months old.
Wow, this piece of fluff is just fascinating.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Okay, we have the next question is Jessica from the United States. I have a 8-month-old and a 6-year-old. I understand the loss of control with emotions during tantrums, but can you touch base on when and how you can be there for your children to discuss emotions, especially with kids versus toddlers since toddlers don't understand emotional control? Or even give an example of how you were able to do that with your children.
Is a 6-year-old, was it?
So 28-month-old and a 6-year-old.
Yeah, I got the 20 month. Okay. So, and everyone wants to discuss emotions. It sort of happens organically. Like if my kids had come home upset, I would say, "What's bugging you?" They'd usually say nothing. But then over a period of time, I'd say, "Oh, how was school today?" I'd just feed them some general questions and it would always come out. So I wouldn't have the therapy sessions discussing big feelings and big emotions, right? So it would I was a very good listener. I would just open the conversation up and let them talk. That is how they work through their own feelings. Everyone wants to do these mini therapy sessions. I know they're trendy right now, but they're more for you, not for your children. They don't really want the therapy session. They do want to be able to open up and tell you everything, though, without judgment. And also, you don't gather information to lecture or you just want and to lecture with. You just gather information to show sympathy, or not so much sympathy, but understanding and empathy. Okay. So you say, "Yeah, that would be frustrating. I can understand." It's also good if you can be relatable. So when kids are telling you what's happened at school, something's upset them, I would say, "I remember when I was your age, this happened to me too." They love that. They love it when it didn't just happen to them. In other words, there's nothing wrong with you. It happened to me too. And I remember another happened to someone else too. So they love it when you're relatable. They love it when they can tell you anything with no judgment. engagement. So you don't listen to understand, to lecture with, to gather information to lecture with. You listen to be relatable, and to just let them open up and solve their own problems too. I never problem solved with my kids. I let them do it. So I'd say, and they'd say, "What should I do, Mommy?" And I'd say, "Well, I don't know." I said, you can figure it out. And then we'd start talking. And I wanted them to come up with their own solutions. I might offer some little tidbits here and there, but I really wanted them to empower them to figure it out on their own. I didn't try and go in and save the day and handle all their big emotions and big feelings. They don't want therapy sessions unless they've been through trauma. Obviously, there's exceptions. But overall, you want to empower them to talk through their own feelings, and then you want them to come up with their own solutions.
I can imagine that would be hard as a parent too if you have a kid who maybe needs to internalize things a little different. Like I know, for example, you and I, like I need to think things through before I vocalize them. And so, how do you approach that if you have different paces in which you express things?
Space. I used to just give you space. I knew it'd come out eventually. Always did. So, but she's still like this. She's almost 31 now. I know I can always tell when something's bugging her, and we're best friends too. I always know when something's bugging her, but I know enough not to ask right in the moment. I'll just say, "Oh, is something bugging you?" And she'll go, "No, no." Then I know. Okay, so I can usually tell. So then she'll come out with it eventually. Just give them space. Let them come up with it on their own. Don't force it. But I always made it very clear, I'm here. I was always, always there.
Okay, we have one final question. So, Laura from the United States. Girls are ages 3 and 6. I recently heard you answer a question regarding a child that yelled. You answered that for the child, yelling could not go on the behavior board because it was attitude. Are there other things that are like an attitude but commonly confused with actions that can't go on the board? Is yelling always attitude and lumped in with handling it as you would tantrums? Or are there actions like yelling at so and so that would be placed on the board and dealt with via a consequence?
It depends. The only two things that come out of their mouth that I put on the behavior board usually is saying bad words or name calling. Okay. Those two things I will put on the board. But if they're just saying, "Yeah, whatever," or that attitude, where they're really disrespectful towards you, or "I hate you" and all that kind of stuff, just go, "Whatever," and let it go. They're only saying it to get a rise out of you. They're saying it to try and upset you. They're on the low road when they've got that bad attitude. You stay on the high road, let them join you up there. As soon as you start addressing the bad attitude, now all of a sudden you're on the low road with them. Okay. I never give it any weight or any energy. And also, the only reason they disrespect you is because they don't respect you. So as soon as you're a leader, then they don't talk to you like that at all. They just don't. So you got to work on your leadership skills. Their bad attitude is your sign that you need to work on your leadership skills. A lot of parents expect respect, but you got to earn it. You got to work for it, okay? You don't just expect to get something for nothing. You got to earn it. If you yell, you're not going to get respected, okay? You stop yelling, and then you might start to see a difference.
Okay, that was it for the questions. I think maybe a good place to end is I feel like if you have a kid who's having a lot of tantrums and maybe you had another who didn't, and this is like very overwhelming for you, how do you frame it with parents so that they don't start talking negatively about that one kid who has tantrums?
They often call them the black sheep, but they're all different. Oftentimes, the most combative, disobedient child often turns out to be really successful later on in life. Now, hear me out. They're not conformists. They have a different beat that they're dancing to. Okay, they're very forthright. They know who they are. They're very confident. But yeah, that turns into a really good quality. Do not see defiance as a negative. See it as something that you want to work through, but don't see that personality trait as a negative. Just think, well, they might be the leaders of tomorrow, okay? Because they often do have very strong personalities, the leaders of tomorrow. So it can turn into a real positive down the road. And you call them the black sheep. Maybe you guys are. Maybe they're the real winner. By the way, those are all the kids I worked with. I never worked with an easy kid. I worked with all the, quote, black sheeps, okay? All the ones who were defiant, who were headstrong, who were stubborn. Those are all the kids I worked with. I still managed to get respect with them all. They didn't talk back to me. I know how to get respect. I know how to set myself up as a leader, and the leaders always make them feel good. I never judge them for acting out. I never criticize them for being naughty. Very careful about that. I dealt with it, but I never judged them for it.
Okay. Anything else you want to add before we end?
I don't think so. I think that's about it. I hope it's very clear. So we were talking about handling the chaos. That's your own personal challenge. I'm not good with a lot of chaos. You should see me traveling. Um, trying to clean a hotel room before I enter it, basically. I'm a germaphobe. So yeah, I don't like chaos either, but I'm okay with kids because I know how well it works when you stay calm, at least on the outside. So you're in for the long haul here. It's short-term pain for long-term gain. Whenever you give in, whenever you yell, because yelling can work in the short term, but it will backfire. So whenever you yell or anything, that's short-term gain for long-term pain. Think of it the other way. You're investing in tomorrow, and it'll pay off right through the teen years. Okay, so thanks for joining us. This was series number 4. We've got 3 more to go of our 7 days in a row podcast.
We'll give you a sneak peek. Tomorrow's going to be all about toddlers.
Ooh, sneaky. Okay, so we'll talk tomorrow. Happy parenting.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're ready to dive deeper, check out bratbusters.com to learn more about the behavior board, parenting courses, and private one-on-one coaching with Lisa. If you've enjoyed the show so far, we'd love it if you could take a moment to follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more parents just like you. The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. Lisa is a parenting coach, mom, and grandmother. She is not a licensed psychologist or counselor. Her services do not replace the care of psychologists or other healthcare professionals. For a full disclaimer, please visit bratbusters.com/disclaimer.